It's author, musician, singer Al Cole, from a CBS radio background, now host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, celebrity interviews giving high-level public figures the chance to talk about their very special human feelings, too. Because celebrities are human beings, people, and we are all people of distinction. And when given the chance, we will all speak openly about the very reason for our birth, the energy and dedication of what we call love. Hey, and speaking of love, you're going to love these messages. On People of Distinction, we deliver the goods. It's Al Cole, host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, throwing the spotlight on another one of my guests of distinction. This time a true inspirational force in our world, the dynamic Maureen St. Germain. Maureen is the CEO of Transformational Enterprises Incorporated. TEI provides consulting, workshops, and training to help enrich and edify our human family. Maureen has also written the great new book, Be a Genie. You gotta love that title. Be a Genie is a life-transforming book of love, success, and happiness. To make the point about the impact that book can have on your life, let me first ask you a few questions. All right. What if your every thought could occur as quickly as you desire it? What's the fastest way to make your wishes and dreams come true? Well, I'll give you the answer to that one. Of course, a genie. And finally, what if the genie is you? Whoa there, beginning to get it? Maureen St. Germain has learned how to become her own genie. And through her brilliant new book, you can learn how to become your own genie too. So run to this website, MaureenSt.Germain.com. That's www.MaureenSt.Germain.com. Or you can email her at info@MaureenSt.Germain.com. When you order Be a Genie, suddenly you'll see the power you'll unleash for yourself. I'll tell you, you cannot be contained. You will be unstoppable. And get this, Maureen's applied the Genie system to working in the corporate world too. Plus, as a single mom who's put 3 sons through college, and as a businesswoman who's paid off her family debt too. And if that's not enough, hey, Maureen's fulfilled her every wish in marrying the man of her dreams too. You gotta love it. So uncap that genie in you, everybody, just as Maureen has. Run to this website, MaureenSt.Germain.com. That's www.MaureenSt.Germain.com. You can also learn more at beagenie.net or email her at info@MaureenSt.Germain.com. And just one more question, folks. Isn't it time that you became unstoppable, too? It's Al Cole. We're here on People of Distinction, the talk show that edifies as it entertains and informs. I tell you, you're going to love those messages. Hey, I'm also the author of the exciting new book, Al Cole, Romance for Women. I'll tell you, at last a book of sensual love poetry to women and the needed spiritual relationship guidance to both women and men. Happy to say that my book, Al Cole, Romance for Women, is now available on Kindle, and I'd like to thank all of my Al Cole-holics who have bought it and also benefited from it too. That's Al Cole, Romance for Women, ALCOLE, Romance for Women, now available on Kindle. Thousands and thousands of women, guys too, listen to my talk shows, People of Distinction, every week, and they contact me with their questions, reflections, and comments at alcoholic@gmail.com. You heard me right there. That's ALCOLEHOLIC@gmail.com. So without any further ado, hey, we get into it. Hey, it's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. I come from CBS Radio. My shows are nationally syndicated, and I've helped pave the way to treating women, guys too, with the dignity that they deserve with my new book, The Spirit of Romance. Whoa, we love romance around here, and thank you so very, very much, all of my listening audience, for the way that you've supported my book, the way that I define romance in my book, particularly as the loving relationship that we all enter into with life itself. Now, that's big-time territory right there. Try embracing life in the same way that you embrace your wife, in the same way that you embrace your husband, the kids, the boyfriend, the girlfriend.
mother, father, even that best friend, it's not quite the same embrace. The outside embrace is that physical embrace. That is beautiful. We are physical human beings. We know that. But we're more than just that. We're conscious human beings, and consciousness means something. That is the life that you embrace on the inside. And the way that you do that is, you take some alone time. You figure out who you are, what your passions are. You figure out what you love about life. Love, underscore that, people. It is about love. Underscore passion. Certain things that are on your passion scope, certain things that you just love so much that you have to get that out there to other people. And now, when we're talking about other people, now we're really talking about serving other people, doing things to enhance the quality of life around you, not only just yours, but other people as well. And when you're talking about love to begin with, I love doing this, and so I'm even going to form a business around this. Now you're talking about the energy that you bring into whatever you love. Now we're not just talking about the emotion of love. We're talking about the energy of love. And once you talk about energy, you're talking about maybe even a higher self capacity where it's all energy. And you can communicate messages to people on that level. You don't even need a word. And maybe you can even go beyond that to that highest power that even got us here. Really communicating on that basis. And doing it first and foremost within your own consciousness, having dialogues with other people within your own consciousness, and then relating to them even better on the outside. That's what People of Distinction is all about. We're all people of distinction, and we talk that way on this show. We talk about the deep things in life. We talk about the things that are really meaningful, and we do it in a very entertaining way. My shows, People of Distinction, are aired on my very own People of Distinction radio network. It's almost revolutionary here. With CBS Radio, I have a very popular show. And so, like any other major show, they're aired on the Internet as well. I believe in the Internet. That's the future. And my shows are aired on the Internet on the very biggest radio networks, the iTunes Radio Network, Live 365, also 10 or 11 other big digital media networks. So it gets all around the country, all around the world. And we've been edified. We've been really gratified with a wonderful listening audience. And really changing things. I have my People of Distinction Humanitarian Awards every year. We celebrated our first annual one last year in November, just a couple of months ago. It was a phenomenal success. And we honored 13, turned out to be a lucky number, 13 unsung heroes, humanitarian unsung heroes in our society. And we are going on this year to our second annual People of Distinction Humanitarian Awards. We also have clients that air their shows on the People of Distinction Radio Network. Dee Wallace, the actress. Dee starred in Steven Spielberg's masterpiece, E.T., E.T. the Extraterrestrial. She's one of my clients, and she airs her shows every Thursday on the People of Distinction Radio Network, compliments of the iTunes Radio Network and the Live 365 Radio Network. So if you have a radio show that you'd like to get off the ground, maybe you are off the ground with your radio show and you want to get more visibility to it, you can email me at alcoholic@gmail.com. That's ALCOLEHOLIC@gmail.com. I'm also published by Chicken Soup for the Soul. I'm very happy to be. I'm a writer, too, a musician, singer, a whole bunch of things. I love it. And there's always room for one more. Yay. Speaker and also somebody who gets out there with the energy concerns. I've been communications director with the World Green Energy Symposium and the Thought Leadership Conference periodically in New York City and Washington, D.C. So we have to make the most of our abilities, people. And you're all people of distinction. Just like this lady, Maureen J. St. Germain, definite person of distinction here. And she was brought to me by Deborah Jacobs. You might remember the name because Deborah was also on my show, life coach and also a publicist, and doing some great things with Archangel Michael. Hey, we love Archangel Michael around here, too. And Deborah brought me Maureen J. St. Germain. Maureen is the CEO of Transformational Enterprises Incorporated. TEI, as it's known, provides consulting, workshops, training, and sacred journeys and everything, and guided meditation CDs, aromatherapy, instructional books, and related materials to help enrich and edify our human family. Maureen's going to break it down into what it really means, and she's going to really inspire you people, so stick around. Maureen also has written a wonderful new book called Be a Genie. Love that title, you know. And she's going to live up to that, too. When you use the title of Be a Genie, when you use genie in anything, boy, you know, now we are talking about possibility thinking, people. We're talking about possibilities on our human family plate. And that's what Maureen is into. She's going to be into really guiding us, like a genie does, into the beautiful possibilities that we have with our human family. Be a Genie is a life-transforming book of love, success, and happiness, and Maureen knows all about that. And run to this website to learn all about Maureen, MaureenSt.Germain.com. That's www.MaureenSt.Germain.com. You can also email her at info@MaureenSt.Germain.com. So, get in touch, support the things that Maureen does. I know you're going to love this interview. Maureen, it's really a pleasure to have you on People of Distinction with Al Cole today. How are you?
Thank you. It's an honor as well.
Yeah, this is really going to be fun. We're going to be talking it up about all the great things that you do, and already we have a lot of synergy with the People of Distinction crowd that really love the things that you do even before you've talked about them. So I want you to introduce yourself to my audience, and introduce, even before we get into your book, introduce yourself in terms of your upbringing, maybe certain things in your life that were inspiring to you, and at a young age you had to reach out to, and it eventuated to the great work that you're doing now. Tell us a little bit about Maureen St. Germain as a human being here. What are you all about?
Well, I grew up in the Midwest on a vegetable farm,
which
means you're up very early in the morning, 7 o'clock. I will never forget the time that I was late one too many times, and my father cornered me and fussed at me, and I thinking that I hadn't even had breakfast and that I was struggling to get there on time. And he said, "You're just going to have to get up earlier if you want to have breakfast."
Mm-hmm.
And I remember as an adult thinking, I couldn't pull the guilt card on him. And I grew up in this very structured, solid core family. I never had to deal with the kinds of things that a lot of people do about self-worth, because my father felt very strongly about paying us. And even though we only made 25 cents an hour, we had something to show for it. And even though we weren't allowed to spend it, it still was pretty impressive to get a check, have to endorse it, watch it go in the bank like that.
Wow.
So that's kind of like the core thing. And I grew up in a Catholic family and Catholic grade school.
Yeah.
And so that was a small town was my big influence.
Yeah.
And I was married for 25 years and raised 4 sons. My husband and I broke up after 25 years, so I still had another 10 years of parenting to do, which I did on my own. And then I am happily remarried now. And in the time period around the time that my marriage ended, my corporate world work shifted a little. I had always been a CEO in nonprofits or had been in leadership roles.
Yeah.
And the position that I ended up with at that time was a fundraising leader. So I was director of development, but it also meant that I had a boss, and I didn't report directly to the board of directors. That was new for me, and it was quite the shock to discover that I didn't realize how much people were giving me attention because I was the CEO.
Ah, I see. Yeah.
You just don't notice that people are deferring to you because you're the CEO, but then when you're not the CEO and people don't, treat you any way different than they treat themselves, apparently. And so there was a little bit of growing up for me to do at that point, too, because I wanted to be successful, and I was in a new level of responsibility with my children. And so, and it was also when I began my seminar business, because up until then I had so much demand on my time that I simply could not think about the things I was interested in as a career. But once I took this number 2 position, so to speak, then I could go home at a decent hour, and I had vacation time that I could take. And the company I went to work for gave lots of vacation, like 3 weeks of vacation, and I took every single week of vacation time, every single week, every single day of those 3 weeks of vacation time, individually, one day at a time, teaching seminars.
Isn't that something? That's a lot of work there, and it resulted in some great things that now you're doing with your Transformational Enterprises Inc., and also things that you're doing in the book world. It's not easy to weave both, to have your own business and write books at the same time, is it?
No, it's not. And you make a very good point. And it's so funny because when I started out, I didn't. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to write a book. Now I've written several books, but initially I was so terrified that I might not be able to write a book that I construed this plan in my head that said, I'm good at seminars, I'm good at presenting, I'm good at sales, so I'll create the seminar, and then the seminar will help me write the book. So I actually worked backwards. I started with a business model and created a seminar business that became very successful, and just kept good journals, and over time kept writing and writing, so that I could just come back to those journals and flesh it out.
And that's not bad. You can start with seminars and write a book. It's called the experiential. It's called learn from doing. And when you're out there, giving seminars, and when, they're well received, and actually you're in synergy with the audience, and you're learning from the audience as you're out there teaching the audience, now you're in a position to write it down. And now you might not know some of the actual, constructions of correct, book structure at that point. But you do have the knowledge, and a lot of people do it that way. They'll get out there, they'll have something successful, and they will go into their tape recorder of sorts, and they'll dictate whatever words come to their mind, and then somebody else will actually put it together in book form. But it's their words, it's their ideas, and it's their expertise. So there's nothing wrong with that. And when you generated that sort of expertise from your seminars, did you feel like, wow, I'm grateful for the opportunity to not only teach people, to instruct people, to guide people, but also for being in a position of knowing so many people who come back to me and say, you've guided me in certain ways, and learning now from the people that you've guided. That it's a two-way path there, and it's circular. Did you ever feel that aspect of your accomplishments, Maureen?
Well, you actually tapped into something that I do in every workshop, in every event I hold, and that is an opening prayer, and I actually begin with those very same words. I am so grateful to be here.
Yeah.
We are so grateful for the opportunity to be together in this way. And as far as the synergy of the audience, one of the things that really happened over and over and over that made me feel like I was building a huge structure was every week I would teach the same course, but it was so popular that I had, city after city after city that I could go to all over the world and still have a full schedule. And what I found is that the material that came through last week was now the base, and new questions got asked, different kinds of questions. I could answer those, teach from that, and then go to the next level. So not only was there a synergy, but the actual questions that the people asked created a matrix within which we all grew. We all grew.
That's right.
Yeah, it was phenomenal, just phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful aspect. When, you see, human beings are, I believe, interconnected through energy and through their thoughts and through emotional intelligence and spiritual connections. And so when we spend time with other people in the things that really matter to them and matter to us, it could be, professional involvement such as giving seminars or whatever, or it could be more intimate. But when we get involved with other people in any sort of way that's meaningful to them and also meaningful to us, well, we just have to grow that way. And a lot of their thoughts become our thoughts. A lot of their feelings become our feelings. And we learn from the people that we are teaching at that time. The teacher becomes the student as well. And the students now realize that they have the capacity within them to also teach and to also raise excellence in other people. That is the beautiful aspect, and that is your path. That's part of what you learned, and that's part of what you do. Am I on the right track? Am I on the right track there?
Oh, absolutely. It was absolutely an honor and a privilege, because in the moment, the space would become so sacred that the questions and the interactions were inspired, as well as the responses that came through me were inspired as well. And that can only happen in an environment of mutual love and respect, which was what we always ended up with. It's fabulous. And I always said the same thing as you. You know, everyone has something to teach and something to learn.
Yep, absolutely. And we're going to learn a lot about Be a Genie. Her new book, Maureen, is just doing wonderful things in the book world as well. She mentioned it already. Love, success, happiness, it's all about that. And we know, that we can use those words, and those words are not really enough to write a book, but boy, she's going to explain what those words really mean. They're going to come alive out of her mouth in just a minute or so after I redirect you to this website, www.maureenstgermain.com. I want you to run there and learn more about this fascinating woman, and also the great things that she's creating in her life for the edification of our lives. info@maureenstgermain.com. You can also email her at that email address, info@maureenstgermain.com. Let's get into it here. Be a Genie, that's your new book. It sounds like a fascinating book, just a wonderful book. We've been talking it up in so many words in the intro to the show, in the last few minutes that we've been talking. Now I want you to really pinpoint it. Tell us a little bit about, go through some of those chapters. What do we expect when we read your wonderful book, Be a Genie, Maureen?
The premise of the book came from my original crisis of being a newly single mom, having one of my sons being invited to go to a very expensive college at the time. It was $40,000 a year, and coming on board with a new company at a wage pay scale that was half what I had been making, and also being a single parent, I was terrified that I would fail, and determined that I would succeed. So the story begins, there, where I had told my second son that I would back him if he could get into this school. I would make up whatever they wouldn't give him in scholarships, and it turned out to be $10,000 a year. And initially, they sent me a letter telling me, send us $10,000 for the year, and we'll be good. And I remember thinking, oh my God! And it got buried under some papers. I mean, what else are you going to do with it, right? And then a month goes by, and then they send me a letter saying, well, send us $1,000. We didn't hear from you, so we presume you want to go on the payment plan, and so now give us $1,000 a month. And I heard that and read it and thought, oh my gosh, if I give you $1,000, I'm not going to be able to make the house payment. So that one just went in the wastebasket.
Yeah.
And so then that first semester, I finally manifested the money of $5,000 by Thanksgiving. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this was so hard. I never want to do this again. I'm going to have to find a different way to manifest this. And I began to realize that what I really wanted wasn't $5,000 7 more times. It was a grand total of $40,000.
Yeah.
And even though, as a CEO, I had managed $1 million budgets, I had never had $40,000 of my own money in my own account. And so it scared me. I couldn't, in manifestation books they tell you, well, visualize what you want. And I'm thinking, there is no way I can visualize $40,000. I'm having trouble visualizing an extra $40 right now. So I began to think about, well, what would it take? And the answer was I'd have to come up with an image that would represent that accomplishment. And what that image is my son in a cap and gown. And because I was still so terrified, I couldn't even conjure up that image. So I took a photograph from his high school graduation and put it on my office at work. And every time I got scared, which could be 30, 40, 50 times a day, I would look at that picture and I would make the following statement. There were some scary times, but it wasn't that hard. And I would say this over and over to myself. Now, one of the premises of the GENIE material is the idea that what you resist persists, and you can create more than one version of the reality. So I don't want to resist the fact that I'm freaking out, so that's the part where I say, yeah, there were some scary moments. Then I'm validating that. I'm not offering any resistance. I'm not giving any extra energy to it. Mm-hmm. And then there were, but it wasn't that hard, was my desire for it to not be that hard. And I knew if I said it, I could bring it on. And it's a little bit like fake it till you make it. So initially that's what I did. And I did it over and over and over. And it began to become easier and easier. And in the process, I began tracking what was working and what wasn't. And it was a very interesting strategy because then I wasn't freaking out about, where am I going to get the $5,000 this month? I just stayed on the big goal. And that's one of the things I will say to your listeners. When you're working on something, look at the largest piece of it. In other words, if you want to be able to afford a house of a certain house payment, look at the whole picture of that the house is yours and paid for, because you could end up with another way to have that house than the monthly payments that you've conjured up. And it's like when people say, I want to manifest a different car, but I can't afford it right now. The answer is, but yeah, somebody could give you a used car. You could buy it outright. You could inherit it. I mean, there's lots of ways people can acquire things. They don't have to necessarily go through the traditional process that most Americans do today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, boy. That's inspiring stuff that you're talking about, Maureen. And I'm gonna give it out to my listeners my way as well, because you've inspired me to say something here. People, what Maureen is talking about, she's talking about change in your life. Now, get this. We can manifest things at different times in our lives. Visualization, that process is a beautiful one, and that's an energy process. Starts out by maybe visualizing something on the outside, but we actually create it on the inside. Now, get this. We have a way, as human beings, as human animals, of changing our brain chemistry, changing our body chemistry, changing the relationship of the cellular compact of the human body. Now, that's a big aspect of what Maureen is talking about, even though she hasn't mentioned that aspect. When we visualize, when we energize, when we even imagine something to be so, as if it already were a done deal, and we start living it out as if it were already a done deal, we have now changed something essentially in who we are. We're believers now. Underscore faith. Faith means something here. We believe in the concept that we're creating. And in that belief, we now, our whole body starts to believe. The way that we pump the blood to the heart starts to believe. The way that, some of the biochemical structures, some of the hormones in our body start to interrelate. They start to believe. And that actually makes the whole system younger. It makes the whole system ebullient. It makes the whole system want to thrive and want to get into the action of making this work. And that does work then. See, it's no mystery, people. We can see it on so many different levels. You are not the same person today as you were, maybe even last week, or a year ago, or 2 years ago. Your body isn't the same. We know every 7 years or so it regenerates anyway. We can be part of that regenerative process, and all we have to do is just not interfere with it. Just go along with it. As your body regenerates, your mind regenerates. As your mind regenerates, it helps the body to regenerate as well. Go with that flow. go with that visualization flow. Your body's going to do that anyway. And you can respond to the beautiful bodily changes, and that will help the psychological and spiritual changes to then further help a lot of the biochemical changes that your body will believe in your mind. And your mind will have no problem anymore with your body. They're in synergy. They're going to make this work for you. Is that kind of making a little bit of sense here too, Maureen?
Absolutely. And the visualization is very true and very, very valid. What I found, though, it wasn't enough. And the visualization, one of the things that I found that added so much weight to manifesting is a 3D conversation. And so let's say you and I decide we want to do a business together, and we do our visualization of what that might be. But what if the two of us then pretended to have a real-time conversation after it was fabulously successful and people were thanking us, and we would sit down and, break bread or have a cup of tea or whatever we would do and share our thoughts. Remember when that was just an idea, and now look at what we're doing. And that conversation tells the subconscious that it's already happened. And there's all kinds of research now that shows that the body and the mind cannot tell the difference between an imagined event and a real one.
Yep. There you go.
So then what happens is, like a lighthouse, this imaginary conversation is beaming out that conversation, just like a lighthouse beams out its beam, and the universe picks that version of the reality for you to line up with because that's the one that's most prominent.
There we go. Well said there. We love these concepts on People of Distinction with Al Cole, Maureen J. St. Germain. Special guest, she's the CEO of Transformational Enterprises Incorporated. She's also the author of a great new book that we're talking about right now, Be a Genie. And again, we love that word genie here. And if you love what we're talking about, I want you to order this book. Just go to Maureen's website. That's www.maureenstgermain.com, maureenstgermain.com, or you could email her directly at info@maureenstgermain.com. Let's stick with your book for a few more minutes here, and then we'll go on to maybe some of the workshops that you do, and aromatherapy particularly. My listeners love that topic. We'll talk about it all. But sticking with your book here for a second, Maureen, how'd you come up with the word genie in the title? Why genie particularly?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I actually did a meditation where I went into the future and I heard myself having a conversation with someone just like you and telling them about this material that I had been working with. And earlier in the week, I had announced I'd really like to know the name of what I should call this. And to the interviewer, I said, when I wrote Genie, and over the years, I stuck with it. And a few times, people would say, oh, that's, don't use that name. It's too long. It's too this. It's too that. But what happened is I discovered that the word genie, letting the genie out of the bottle, for example, implies that the genie is going to wreak havoc. But the secret of the genie is that if you are holding secret knowledge, then you become the powerful genie. So just like in a political environment, when the people become knowledgeable about something that the government or the overlords are doing that is not appropriate, and they become powerful because they figure it out and they start doing for themselves, once you have this powerful information, you become unstoppable.
Absolutely. And I like that. The genie is you, people. You have all of that potential within you to become your own guiding force in this world, and that is such an important message for all of our human family, all of our people of distinction out there. Let's talk a little bit about the workshops that you do. I see that you're out there, you're training, you're guiding people. What sort of workshops can we expect from Maureen over, let's say, the next couple of months or so?
Right now, we are I'm teaching Akashic Records and how to open up your own Akashic Records and get guidance directly from the Akashic Records, which is the 11th dimension.
Okay.
And then I teach an advanced course where people can get certified to read for others. I also have a few classes in the work I did for 20 years, which is the Merkaba Classic, and it's the original 17-breath meditation that I really taught, like, from a vantage point of great joy and gratitude. It's an amazing body of knowledge, and it is quite vast. So that also is a book.
Yes, it also is. That's great. You mentioned Akashic Records right off the bat. Many of my listeners, of course, understand what Akashic really means, and some of them don't. Explain that. We really have to, as a society, understand the basic methodology here, the basic essence of Akashic Records. So lay it down to us. What, when you use that term, what are you talking about?
All right. So let's say we believe in creation and that at some point there was nothingness and then there becomes a creation. After creation, a decision was made to make a library of what has happened and what could happen. So the Akashic Records were created after the creation was created with the general idea that it would be nice to have a point of reference. If there's only the now, how are we going to know, really what happened? Mm-hmm. And so the Akashic Records not only tells us about the past, but it also tells us about the likely future we're going to take. The records hold probable futures, possible futures, and it's us to take choices. So why are people allowed in the records now when that was never offered before? And the big answer is because when the planet, when the humanity starts to evolve, as it is rapidly doing now, it's able to take on information and act on it instead of learning everything the hard way. This is why shows like yours are so important, because people are learning through the experience of you and others. Then they don't have to go through those traumas or dramas, and that's what the records are all about. It's to save people the trouble. The number one question that people ask when they're in the records is why? Why did he do that to me? Or why did that happen? Or what, caused this thing to happen? Or did I make that happen? And it's a very fun experience to go into. And I'd like to share a short story about that. I had a client who was a regular, and so she was coming maybe once a month for an Akashic Records session. And she lived in New York City, and she was renting one of those row apartments, which really means there were two narrow apartments that were bridged, and there was a kitchen in the middle and then a dining room and two separate bedrooms. And she was going to rent the second bedroom to a gay guy that she had met through another friend. She was really excited about this because she was a cook. She'd have full use of the kitchen and the dining room, and he was happy just to have a spare room. So far, so good. And in the session, at the end, just as an afterthought, she said to me, I'm just wondering how everything's going to go with my new roommate, Craig, that's going to move in with me in June. We're both going to move into this new space. And the record keeper said to her, through me, the record keeper said, it'll be fine until the luster wears off. Mm-hmm. And she said, luster? What luster? Does that mean he's not going to last? And they said, yes, again, through me. And she said, how long will they stay there? And the record keeper said, he'll leave in July. And she said, of what year? Because here it was June, they were moving in, and she's thinking there's no way he's going to bail on me in 6 weeks. And then she said something very interesting. She said, maybe I shouldn't rent to him. And the record keeper said, no, keep your appointment with him, as the timing will lead you to the roommate of your dreams. Mm-hmm. Now, everything fell into place exactly as predicted. Now, you should ask me a question about prediction in the records, because I'd like to answer that, but not right this second. So everything happened the way the record keeper said. I don't necessarily remember these things, but the client came back and reported all this to me and said, you would never believe, blah, blah, blah. So in the process of telling the story, one of the things that she recognized was the huge benefit she had in knowing that it might fall apart. So when it did, she wasn't nearly as anxious or uptight as she could have been if she hadn't known that she was going to get the roommate of her dreams after this.
Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that something? And, you wanted me to ask this question, too, about prediction in the records, so that you wouldn't have been off track in what you just described. Tell us a little bit about that, too, prediction in the records.
Generally speaking, we don't do predictions per se. So it's not a psychic reading. A person might get timely information as a subset of a bigger piece of information. But it isn't like, when am I going to die, or will I ever get married, or it's not like that. It's more like, what's going on now, and what are my choices now. Again, the whole purpose of being in the Akashic Records is to help you make better, easier decisions. It's kind of like being a teenager or college-age student and having the wisdom of your parents and being willing to listen to it.
Absolutely. And, as I'm going through your website a little bit, there's under Sacred Journeys, this already occurred, but that's not to say it won't occur again in some point in the maybe even near future. Sacred Journey to Peru, Sacred Journey. This is something very important here, and particularly join me as we explore the ancient cultures of Peru with shamans and elders. These are things that the average everyday Joe and Josephine American should really have on the radar screen, because we're talking about eternal truths here that some of our quote-unquote third world people know better than we do. Tell us a little about, it harkens back to Shirley MacLaine a little bit, Caught on a Limb, or Out on a Limb. I always loved that made-for-TV movie and what she did with it, and everything that was so inspiring about Peru. Inspire us a little here with Journey to Peru and shamanism and talking about elders. Tell us what that's all about.
Well, the ancient sites are power points that when groups gather in the present moment, they can authorize upgrades, they can authorize changes. And so our work is always present day, even though we're honoring the old traditions. Mm-hmm. So I'm not so much of a shaman or interested in pursuing the shamanistic way as I am in being in those sacred sites, honoring the traditions, bringing in perhaps the shaman that's a local shaman that's been working in that vortex or that sacred site, and then taking that work to a whole new level. Because in my world, we are in a place of great transition, and the old patterns are shifting and changing, and it's far easier for people to line up to their higher self and their most evolved expression if that's the energy that's vibrating on the planet. They say that children who wear uniforms to school behave better, and part of the reason is because the standard is don't get that uniform wrecked. Some poor parent is worried about that, and then of course the other thing is the idea that you're in a school that requires a uniform. It means that we've got a standard here that we hold people to. Mm-hmm. So there are times that people behave differently when no one's watching. I had a conversation with my husband at lunch, and we were talking about using a photograph that I wanted to use. And I said, I wonder if we could crop this and blah, blah, blah. And he immediately said, well, it's going to be on a paid site, so, no one will be able to tell that you got it from this site. And I looked at him and went, oh, so you're basically telling me that's kind of illegal. And I said I don't do illegal stuff because I always get caught. But I have an attitude that's kind of a funny attitude. It's not a bad attitude, but it's an attitude that says, no, I'm not interested in that because I don't want to take the chance of breaking the law either purposefully or not purposefully. By the way, that whole business of integrity, being honest, always telling the truth, not being funny business with even a little bit of money, like she overpaid me, I didn't pay enough, whatever it is, that level of integrity relates directly back to our ability to manifest. And the more you tell the truth, the faster you can manifest. And why is that? Because when you tell a lie, you're telling God there's not enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. Great point. And, hey, let's not shrink from that G word, people, God. We have to accept some of the values that come from actually being a spiritual person. And like Maureen was just talking about with the kids, wearing a uniform at school. And kids will, act a little bit better. She gave some great reasons, and another great reason is it's a sense of togetherness. Pure and simple. When everybody's wearing the same clothes, we know that clothes define who we are in a very, very special way in our world. And they can do it in positive ways. It can define us as an individual of greatness, an individual who really has something to offer our world. And it can also define a little bit of craziness in our world. It can define something that, we'd rather not have in the school system at that point. It could be very distracting to the educative process. Now, that being said, when kids are all wearing the same uniform, we could say, well, it's a little bit of overkill there with conformity. However, for children to look at other children dressed pretty much the same way, it's kind of like a beautiful mirror image sometimes where they say, I belong. I feel comfortable. These other children are not dislike me. And then it's just a hop, skip, and jump from there that these other children don't dislike me. Now, if we think that way about our human family, on the inside, I'm not saying everybody has to dress the same way. I'm not saying that everybody has to think the same way, act the same way, say the same words. I am saying that on the inside we can create images from the outside and then recreate them on the inside to conform to a likeness, a synergy from within that we can all look at and say, wow, we're not really too different. I can relate to this human being on the inside. I like the likeness of that human being inside of me, therefore I like this human being. We have to spend more time on the inside than we normally do, people. And sometimes, I believe at some point in the future, it's going to be more on the inside than the outside. And that is meditative, as much as it is just dreamland. It's meditative, it's spiritual. These things really do matter. Is that part of what maybe the GENIE symbol stands for as well, taking from the outside and then re-exploring what is on the outside in our inner consciousness in order to create some sort of harmony within ourselves that we can reharmonize the outside as well as a GENIE does? Is that part of it too?
I think so. We have lovely images of what the inside of that GENIE urn looks like.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing searches early on the word GENIE, I saw a couple who had turned their van into the inside of a GENIE bottle. And, of course, we all have images from that famous TV show. It's a plush, comfortable place where you could sit and meditate. So it makes perfect sense to use that idea as a contemplative inspiration, that the inspiration is there. It's kind of like sometimes when people have a conversation, especially couples who know each other very well, and one person will tell the other person something they didn't know, and you can kind of see the look of shock or surprise, like the time my mother told my father that her mother was illegitimate, and my father looks at her and says, I knew that, and you know perfectly well it's not true, but it's kind of funny. And so what I'm going to say is that on the inside we know all that. We know it. But sometimes it takes a little something to get us to discover, oh, yeah, I did know that.
And, we're going to discover some aromatherapy here. We're going to be actually taking it out with a little bit of talk on aromatherapy on a possibility level here, because the beautiful sense of smell that we all possess is something that actually is transitional. We can transition ourselves into not only that genie, but a genius, even through the sense of smell. And I'm sure that Maureen has known that throughout her exploration with aromatherapy. Let's take it out with aromatherapy. We have a few more minutes left in the show, and before we do, hey, visit the website again, www.maureensaintgermain.com, and also email her at info@maureensaintgermain.com. Let's get into a little bit of possibility thinking for our future, the future of our human family, harmony, edification, coming together, particularly through aromatherapy. How do we do that, Maureen?
Well, the brand of aromatherapy that we created is called Aromandalas, and it was developed by one of my business partners, Mary Ellen, who had a master's degree in natural health and a specialty in aromatherapy. And in our work, she's primarily doing the meditation work with me and supporting me with office support, and we would work with the meditation environment, but she was working very closely with the oils. And through that process, she started getting information in the dream time about formulas, and they were coming through. We could tell they were coming through from Mary Magdalene. And my friend and coworker was both blown away, resistant, and accepting, because nothing like this had ever happened to her. And although she was willing to do it, she needed me to be the carrier of this information. Now, on my side, I knew nothing about aromatherapy. What I did know is that I was very sensitive to smell. For example, some people can walk in a room and they can smell mold, and other people cannot. Mm-hmm. Some people can smell all kinds of scents that others cannot. Like when there's a wood burner burning on my street, I can tell, but not everyone does. And so different people have different levels of scent. And one of the things that we found out through our work with this particular body of knowledge that became known as the Aromandalas is that we could use these blends to heal emotional wounds. And in so doing, it would circumvent the trauma version or the drama version of healing from your wounds. And I'll give you an example. One time I came out of a very large workshop where I was participating, but I didn't feel like I belonged. It was a group that I was kind of like casually invited to, and I was there because it seemed like a good idea, but I wasn't sure why I was there. And I came out a little uncomfortable because I pulled some dark energy off the room, and I was, needing to clear that out. But at the same time, at the personality level, I was just like uneasy. And I came into my hotel room, and I looked at this box of aromatherapy of these 24 blends, and I thought, I'm just going to use an oil. Maybe that'll help. And I put my hand on an oil, and it was Crystal Elohim. And I, you put a few drops in the palm of your hand, and you warm it by rubbing your hands together, and then you hold it up to your face, almost like in prayer position, but opened up a little. And you inhale 3 times, exhaling out the mouth, and inhale through the nose like that 3 times. Mm-hmm. And I immediately felt such a sense of relief. Then I looked at what it did, and I was I was shocked because what that particular blend was all about was clearing the feeling of not belonging and fitting in. And I didn't really pinpoint that feeling in the moment. But when I looked at the explanation of what the oil did, you better believe I could confirm it from that vantage point and say, yeah, for sure, that works. And what it does, as an additional bonus, this particular blend restores your original blueprint of your original DNA. So if I was clearing off some dark energy and I was, moving that stuff out and having all these emotions going on at the same time while I was doing that, and then to clear everything out to get my original blueprint back, that's like, wow, it's a reset. If all else fails, restart your computer.
That's great. And I like when you said the feeling because sensing is feeling, and we even use them interchangeably in certain linguistic ways. With aromatherapy, with smell, the sense of smell, we translate that into direct feelings, and we don't even need words. In fact, words then become very inefficient to explain the experience that way. That is a conscious experience. Now, another aspect here is colors. When we feel colors, all we have to do is close our eyes, and if we close our eyes and experience some beautiful color, even an unearthly blend of colors, something so vivid we can't even call it earth anymore, it exists someplace else, that instantly transforms us into a different feeling mode. And the feelings tell the story there. We're poets. Everybody all of a sudden is an instant, natural, universal poet. And they don't even have to explain their poetry in words. It just creates the beauty of a poet within them through the sensation of those brilliant colors, and through, if we're talking about aromatherapy, through the brilliance of that wonderful, wonderful smell. Feelings have an intelligence of their own, don't they?
I think feelings are part of a whole, I'll use the word messenger system.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they for sure have their own world, but they're always giving us another take on something. It's like a number of people can go to the same movie, and then they all go out for, dinner or coffee or whatever, and they start talking about the movie, and one person will say, well, I didn't see that, and someone else will say, well, yeah, and what about this? And, it's so interesting because each person has their own take, and they saw the identical film. You can't look and say, well, they saw it from a different angle. All three of them were sitting right next to each other in the movie theater. Sense does that. It gives us another take on the reality that we're looking at, because so many people were told, you're not supposed to think that. You can't think that. Or don't ever tell. And so they were told to shut down certain elements. And this goes back to why this aromatherapy is so healing, because we have found that people will have an incident. For example, we had a client whose use of one of the oils was very uncomfortable to her, and she wanted the oil. She, kind of checked in, ordered it, but then she was having all kinds of problems when she wanted to use it. So we did a process with her, and what we found out is that as a child, she often spent a lot of time at her grandmother's home, and her grandmother and grandfather were painters, and the smell of turpentine was in the basement all the time, and she was always farmed out to the grandparents when there was trouble at home, and so it was always this unhappy reason to be at grandma's. And so one of the essential oils has a very basic element that's very similar to the scent of turpentine. She was picking up on that. And so we worked with her, helping her to get through it by bagging the oil, literally, in 20 bags, one on top of the other, and every day she took off one bag. And that way she healed that memory that was tied to her scent and her version of the reality, so to speak.
Yeah. Look at that. Boy, a great place to cap off the show right there with a wonderful healing experience there that Maureen was just telling us about. From turpentine, maybe even we could call it the repugnant nature of turpentine, that person felt into more of a bliss when they're released from whatever that subterranean trauma that lives in them is. And we all have that nature of being traumatized and then getting out of there by something so deep inside of us that we discover. Discovery is the modus operandi of living, people. But discovery is not always discovery on the outside through our professions or through our outside relationships. We have to leave some time for that very special relationship that we have with ourselves to discover the beauty of ourselves, within ourselves, so that then we can energize that and we can then help others to discover the beauty within them. That's the message of People of Distinction with Al Cole. Thank you one more time, Maureen, for being our guest on this show. This has really been a wonderful, wonderful show, talking it up about all of the great work that you're doing as CEO of Transformational Enterprises Incorporated, and, of course, your great new book, Be a Genie. I want you to order that book at MaureenSaintGermain.com. You can also email her at info@MaureenSaintGermain.com. Thank you so much. I will invite you back for updates on the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much
really made it a pleasure for me today, Maureen. Thank you.
It's author, musician, singer Al Cole from a CBS radio background, now host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, celebrity interviews giving high-level public figures the chance to talk about their very special human feelings, too. Because celebrities are human beings, people, and we are all people of distinction. And when given the chance, we will all speak openly about the very reason for our birth, the energy and dedication of what we call love. Hey, and speaking of love, you're going to love these messages. On People of Distinction, we deliver the goods. It's Al Cole, host of the syndicated talk show People of Distinction, throwing the spotlight on another one of my guests of distinction. This time a true inspirational force in our world, the dynamic Maureen St. Germain. Maureen is the CEO of Transformational Enterprises Incorporated. TEI provides consulting, workshops, and training to help enrich and edify our human family. Maureen has also written a great new book, Be a Genie. You gotta love that title. Be a Genie is a life-transforming book of love, success, and happiness. To make the point about the impact that book can have on your life, let me first ask you a few questions. All right. What if your every thought could occur as quickly as you desire it? What's the fastest way to make your wishes and dreams come true? Well, I'll give you the answer to that one. Of course, a genie. And finally, what if the genie is you? Whoa there, beginning to get it? Maureen St. Germain has learned how to become her own genie. And through her brilliant new book, you can learn how to become your own genie too. So run to this website, MaureenSaintGermain.com. That's www.MaureenSaintGermain.com. Or you can email her at info@MaureenSaintGermain.com. When you order Be a Genie, suddenly you'll see the power you'll unleash for yourself. I'll tell you, you cannot be contained. You will be unstoppable. And get this, Maureen's applied the Genie system to working in the corporate world too. Plus, as a single mom who's put 3 sons through college, and as a businesswoman who's paid off her family debt too. And if that's not enough, hey, Maureen's fulfilled her every wish in marrying the man of her dreams too. You gotta love it. So uncap that genie in you, everybody, just as Maureen has. Run to this website, MaureenSaintGermain.com. That's www.MaureenSaintGermain.com. You can also learn more at beagenie.net or email her at info@MaureenSaintGermain.com. And just one more question, folks. Isn't it time that you became unstoppable, too? It's Al Cole. We're here on People of Distinction, the talk show that edifies as it entertains and informs. I tell you, you're going to love those messages. Hey, I'm also the author of the exciting new book, Al Cole, Romance for Women. I'll tell you, at last a book of sensual love poetry to women and the needed spiritual relationship guidance to both women and men. Happy to say that my book, Al Cole, Romance for Women, is now available on Kindle, and I'd like to thank all of my Al Cole-holics who have bought it and also benefited from it too. That's Al Cole, Romance for Women, ALCOLE, Romance for Women, now available on Kindle. Thousands and thousands of women, guys too, listen to my talk shows, People of Distinction, every week, and they contact me with their questions, reflections, and comments at alcoholic@gmail.com. You heard me right there. That's ALCOLEHOLIC@gmail.com. So until next time, people, wish you peace, awareness, romance, and mostly love.